This video is sponsored by my own enjoyment of making videos and absolutely nothing else. What? I'm not bitter about it. Whoa, look, I'm on camera. Whoa, I never really do videos like that anymore, like on camera and stuff. But look, here I am. Here's my face. So I took the pleasure in watching the original Friday the 13th the other day, and it was okay. It was okay. It was kind of good. But really, I watched it just because it was kind of a fun and interesting thing to watch such a classic, famous movie for the first time. Because of that, because it's so famous and everything, going in, I did know what to expect. I kind of knew where it was going and all that. And in some ways, this really wasn't a surprise, and I guess I shouldn't have expected it to be. Look, in some ways, I was kind of surprised in some good ways, but mostly it's kind of run of the mill. It's the most generic kind of horror movie you can get, but I guess I was kind of looking for that. So I think that the beginning of this movie was easily the strongest part, as we're introduced to this girl who is on her way to the now infamous Camp Crystal Lake. And we follow her, she's on screen, we kind of get to know a bit about her and stuff for the first 10 minutes or so, something like that. And so you really kind of assume that this is going to be the main character, this is who we're going to be following the entire time. But then, she's fucking killed! She just gets killed randomly by the mysterious killer. I'm still a bit confused if it's supposed to be a mystery as to who the killer is, and if we're supposed to guess who the killer is. Are we? Is that what kind of a movie this is? Is it like Scream, where it's like one of them? I never got that impression.
Everybody's a suspect!
Anyway, I'm mentioning this because this was actually like a genuine surprise to me, and maybe it shouldn't have been because, this is a horror movie. Of course, it's going to open with that cold open kind of thing where somebody gets killed and stuff. That's obvious. That happens in 90% of them or something, but for some reason I didn't see this coming, and that is probably what I appreciated most about this movie. So in a very probably unpopular opinion, I feel like Friday the 13th would have worked better as a short without Jason Voorhees. But yeah, I was kind of super into the idea of a movie from 1980 still, surprising me. But from there on, it only really goes down because, look, for the first 40 minutes or so, this movie was kind of casually entertaining. It wasn't anything mind-blowingly fantastic or anything, but I don't know, it was good. We kind of learn who the characters are and stuff, even if they aren't like that in-depth or anything. We like him. There's the Joker guy, and there's Kevin Bacon. They're alright. But then, from there on, the movie starts to just get kind of just boring. It falls into the abyss of boredom. Look, not to sound too harsh or anything, but it's just not that good. From that point on, it's just a bunch of hanging out, and they play a bit of strip poker, and then one of them sort of goes off by themselves. They go to walk down a dark hallway because it's creepy and it's a horror movie, and I don't know, that's why they do that, I guess. It gets killed because they're by themselves, and then we cut back to the people hanging out because they don't know anything's going on. It's a bit of hanging out. One of them leaves, and then one of them dies again. It's just a bunch of hanging out, dying, hanging out, dying. Rinse and repeat. It's just repetitive by this point, and it's just the same old shit, and it's surprisingly slow for a movie that is primarily about a bunch of people getting killed. It's just really slow. There's few and far between interesting things. What else was I expecting from a movie like this, I guess, is a fair question. Look, I went in expecting that kind of thing anyway, but it's not something that is, like, enthralling. And in some ways, it does make me question why it's such a classic, I guess. Not that it's bad, but just that it's not that mind-blowing. It's also really outdated in terms of visuals and when the actual action and stuff happens. But, with all that being said, this movie really does carry a lot of the cinematic sort of tropes that we still see today. Like, it introduces those sort of horror movie tropes, and I can kind of appreciate it. I can respect it in that kind of way. I can see how this was kind of a revolutionary sort of movie back in the day. Even though, it was kind of hanging on to like the tail end of Halloween. In the end, Friday the 13th is like pretty fun. I did enjoy it. That sounded like a question. Friday the 13th is an alright horror movie that does a, fairly good job of showing some bloody kind of fun death scenes. It kind of sets the standards for all these movies that came out after it. It has enough tension to not just be a laughing stock, and you like the characters enough, I guess, to root for them. They're pretty one note, but it's not the worst thing in the world. You want them to live because you're not a monster. So yeah, I thought that the movie was okay. But now I want to get to misconceptions on this movie that I So Friday the 13th is one of those movies that, you know, everybody's familiar with. Everybody knows Jason Voorhees. Everybody knows what this is kind of about. And as did I. I already knew where we were headed. The movie has really placed a classic sort of timestamp on horror. It's very well known. But I feel like some people might not know that Jason's not in the original. I feel like some people might not know that the hockey mask isn't in the original either. The hockey mask isn't actually introduced until part 3, I found out this week, which is a movie I can't watch because it's in 3D and I can't find a good version of it that's not shitty red and blue splotches. That's not relevant. Don't worry about it. And that's kind of an interesting thing to learn because franchises with such iconic sort of reputations, they kind of have these imprinted memories into the audiences. Like, you think of Friday the 13th and you think of the hockey mask, you think of Jason, of course. So it's really interesting to learn that he wasn't actually in the first one. It's really cool to sort of be surprised by those sorts of things. So I was aware of the fact that Mrs. Voorhees was actually the killer the entire time. I was very aware of that. I was waiting for the twist to happen. Thing is, this movie doesn't introduce that thing as a twist, and it's a fucking wasted opportunity, I'll tell you that much. Anyway, my understanding of how Friday the 13th was going to go was that everybody was going to know about Jason, including the audience and the characters, and there were going to be kind of ghost stories, and that's how the movie was going to start. And then, you know, the twist by the end would be that it's not Jason, it's not a ghost or whatever, it's not supernatural, it's just this poor dead kid's delusional mother. And that's a really cool twist. That's clever, that's intelligent writing, that's Shyamalan shit right there. That's a cool twist. That would have been iconic if they did that, but Friday the 13th really does not even try to do that. And here we are, my focal point for the video. This is the thing that I really actually wanted to talk about because it infuriates me. Friday the 13th does not introduce us to any idea of who the killer is at all. Throughout its entire runtime, we only learn who Mrs. Voorhees is an hour and 20 minutes into the movie. And at that, we don't really learn who she is. She's just some random woman that pops up. And I don't understand that. I don't understand why you would just have some random character pop up like that. Look, if I'm being kind, on a good fucking day, maybe it's a bit interesting because you think it's help. It's like when the cop shows up in the horror movie and then they just get killed. You think, oh yes, safety, things are going to be good. This lady pops up, cool, she's going to help our main character. But no, she's not help, she's the killer. But what fucking good is that? Who is she? Why do I care if she's the killer? I mean, whose idea in 1980 was that? I don't understand the logic behind that. And then she goes on to explain Jason's backstory and the kind of motivation behind this movie, I suppose. And it's just too late for that kind of an explanation. I don't care by that point. Everybody's already dead. What are you doing, movie? And you know, you have to think about this in a 1980s sort of perspective. You have to think of it from the viewpoint that Jason Voorhees is not an iconic character at this point. You don't know who that is. You've never heard of this person. The hockey mask doesn't even exist yet. Jason Voorhees is just a story that some random lady in some random end scene of this movie tells. He's nobody. You don't even see him. Nothing. Why would you introduce your antagonist this late into the game? Would the twist not have worked better if Mrs. Voorhees was established from the beginning, either protesting the camp, or maybe they just talk about her like she's been missing lately or something like that, or she's been missing since the accident, which you should also learn about from the start of the movie. But no, we don't learn about any of that. Would the twist have worked better with any fucking form of establishment for these characters? Yes. The answer is objectively yes. As I said, I originally thought that the twist was that it wasn't Jason and it was Mrs. Voorhees, but we don't know about Jason's existence till a minute before we even fucking learn about Mrs. Voorhees' existence, which, again, is an hour and a half into the movie. What? What Friday the 13th should have done was commit and establish a story. The ghost story of Jason Voorhees should have been from the beginning. We should have been aware of him, the characters and the audience. I mean, sure, we hear a little bit about the town being cursed and that bad things happen and they call it blood camp and stuff. That's not enough because Camp Crystal Lake isn't the thing that's interesting about Friday the 13th. It's Jason. Jason makes Camp Crystal Lake interesting. He is what we're all there for. So the characters should have been talking about Jason this entire time, gossiping about his ghost stories and trying to scare each other and stuff, rather than just hearing about him at the final minute of the movie. I mean, only the last girl even hears about it at all. And by this point, their suspicion should slowly be rising, and they should be thinking about the legitimacy of Jason's story. They should be thinking, could this actually be like a ghost or whatever? And we as an audience assume that it's definitely Jason, because this is a horror movie and supernatural beings exist and all that in horror movies, of course. Then when the twist comes, it would have been mind-blowing, but no. Instead, we're introduced to some character an hour and a half in, told who she is and why she's there, and then treated to the ending. It's just stupid. But then, after all this, Friday the 13th has the audacity to change its mind. At the end of the movie, protagonist girl survives, kills Mrs. Voorhees, and then gets in a boat for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but that's fine. Whatever. She should just leave. I mean, plot-wise, narratively, it would make way more sense for her to leave, but look, they need her in the boat for this scene, okay? So they write it that way. So, she's in the boat, and then out of nowhere, whoa! Pop from under the boat comes Jason Voorhees, who is a zombie, I guess, or was alive. This movie doesn't really make much sense at this point. I mean, everybody knows this scene. I knew this scene was going to happen. It's so famous and everything. But I mean, what the fuck? What is that? So he pulls her into the water, never to be seen from again, we assume, I guess, right? And that's bone-chilling stuff. That's a creepy ending. I mean, it's contradictory and it's stupid, but hey, it's bone-chilling, I guess. That's a scary idea. But then, Friday the 13th fucking changes its mind again, and she wakes up in a hospital. So, was everything a dream? No, because Mrs. Voorhees still killed everybody. They're all dead. So, was the Jason part at least a dream? Look, we all know that the answer's no, because all the sequels happen, and in canon and stuff, he's a ghost or a zombie or something. So the movie went from being supernatural to not being supernatural to being supernatural again, and it just makes no sense. I don't like it. It's an issue for me. And look, this is a 38-year-old movie. I should shut up. Nobody cares. But it bothered me. I watched it, and it bothered me. It made me so mad. It was such a bizarre choice. Why didn't the movie just end with her getting taken down by Jason in the boat? Why did it have to have the extra hospital scene? It's so unnecessary. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't add to the story at all. It was just a bizarre choice, and I think that the movie really would have benefited in just choosing what ending it wanted to go with. It should just commit. It should just do it or don't. Do the supernatural or don't. Do Jason or don't. Which do you want to do? Just commit. Do it. Just do one. And it didn't.
Well, there's no crazy people around here, right?